There wasn't a space for women to be themselves in every facet of their lives. The Good Girl podcast was created to offer that space, to have conversations with a gutted truth without restriction. Join us to unpack your own set of questions and confessions in this good and safe space. My name is Cameo King, and you are listening to the Good Girl podcast. Y'all, I promise you, this gonna be short. So I know y'all are tired of this topic. I am too. Hear me out. My friend said I ain't got a dog in this fight, and I do not. And honestly, I fought deciding whether or not I should say anything about it. And clearly I lost the fight. But hear me out. This is going to be short, and I am intentional about only adding value and hopefully giving some type of revelation, hopefully providing a different perspective than what's already out there. So real quick, I think we've heard all sides of the story. If you do not know what I'm talking about, if you've been living up under the depths of the ocean, not even a rock, the depths of the ocean, right? You may not know what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about what happened at the Oscars, right? So we know Chris Rock made a joke called Jada Pinkett Smith, G.I. Jane. Will Smith walked up on stage calmly, might I add, and he slapped Chris Rock. Chris Rock stood there stunned. Will Smith went back and sat down and took a seat, and he later received his award that night. So again, we've heard all sides of the stories. We've heard folks supporting Will for defending his wife. We've heard folks saying Chris Rock handled it with grace and professionalism. We've heard folks saying, regardless of what Chris said, it was an assault. Folks saying, run up and get done up, don't write a check that your ass can't cash, right? And all I think are true. All these things that have been said, I think are true. There's only one I can't rock with, y'all. That's only one. Y'all out here blaming Jada. I don't get it. I'll tell you this is what I do understand. I get the general idea of protecting your man all day. That's something I stand by. I get it, but not in this instance. It is woefully unreasonable for anyone to expect Jada to stop and process her trigger that is connected to one of the most challenging times in her life, right? I've never had alopecia, right? The joke that Chris Rock said was G.I. Jane. I think Demi Moore played that role, and her head was shaved. And so the reason Jada shaved her head is because she was experiencing alopecia. And after reading some folks' experience with alopecia, it's not just hair loss. It's an autoimmune disorder that results in hair loss. And for some, it may require up to 15 shots, like needles, in their scalp or even in their eyebrow, depending on where the hair loss is. And so I say all this to say, I don't know what it took for Jada to get ready, right? I don't know what mental space, what emotional space she had to be in. This was probably one of the biggest nights of her life, of Will's life, of the family's life, right? And the response is that she should have somehow dismissed her own emotions in that span of 5 seconds when that jab was thrown, intent to her husband, right? Intent to her husband. So forget everything she's been through. Intend to Will, mind you, who has never shown the propensity to assault when the stakes are so high. Now, hear me when I say that, right? Will Smith's brand has been clean in public spaces. He has been intentional about his clean image. And so I think it's unreasonable for us to ask Jada to calculate what her husband is going to do as she is experiencing her own set of triggers, as she is processing something, and say, hey, let me put all that aside. Like, we can really do that in that short time frame. Intent to him, the unlikelihood of him actually walking up on stage and smacking somebody. Like, did she really know? And I'm done with this, y'all. I promise I'm done with this. I'm gonna get to the heart of this. But did she really know when he got up out the seat that he was gonna do what he was gonna do? Did she know that? Anyway, but let's move on. Clearly, I had to get that off my chest. But here we are. So I want to add value to this conversation. So just stick with me, y'all. Stick with me. I know y'all tired of this, but just stick with me. I think it's going to be helpful to you as you interact moving forward. and just better for the community, right? So 3 quick points. I don't want to spend too much time on this because, like I said, I know we tired. 1, redefining what we deem as violent behavior. It wasn't until I had a conversation with my dear friend, Danielle Moore. Y'all know Danny. She's a licensed mental health therapist out of Dallas, Texas. She has her own practice. She is also a psychiatric assessor for several hospitals in the Dallas, Texas area. And so she added the word violent to an experience I consistently had in a few church settings. And my immediate response to her was, "Oh, girl, this isn't violent." And she said, and mind you guys, I'm paraphrasing, so don't quote her word for word. This is my understanding of it. And she said, "Cameo, you are literally experiencing mental anguish, emotional distress, and stress, and having to unpack these experiences. What do you think that does to your well-being? To the cortisol levels in your body. It is violent. It causes harm to you emotionally and to your mental wellness. And we all know, if those things are not intact, that we are just holding on to make it through, let alone thriving in life." And so I say all this to say that sticks and stones hurt and they may break my bones, but also words hurt worse because they leave us with these emotional wounds, trauma, and triggers that we are left to unpack and manage. And many of us are healing from the things our caregiver said to us as children 30 and 40 years later. So I'm asking from this experience, let's re-examine the weight of harmful words and the expectation that folks should just take it because they are grown, right? Or that because they are a celebrity that they are immune to the hurtful words of people. Number 2, told you I'm gonna keep this short. Number 2, who is worthy to defend, right? I think I can comfortably say that no one is perfect. We all fall short. We will need grace more than a few times in our life. And for some reason, it seems like we sanitize grace for a select few, meaning you don't deserve grace if you committed this particular act, sin, or action. Mind you, grace does not absolve you from consequence. I want to say that. Sometimes, if we're talking about God's grace, praise God, you didn't have to see the consequences of your behavior. But I'm separating the two for this conversation. So typically, when we think an act is something we would never do, something that is the most egregious thing to my being, it opposes my morals and values, we categorize that as grace can't cover that because it's like, oh, I would never do that, right? And I don't think anyone wakes up and says, I want to do this bad thing. I want to destroy my marriage. I want to steal. I want to demoralize a human on national TV. So how do we get here? I think it's a small fox that kills the vine, right? It's little things that create this larger monster, that create this larger act. And I think it's something for us to consider. Because when we don't understand that, when we don't leave room for the how did we get here, we place ourselves on a moral high ground and judge. We judge harshly and we judge wrongly. So the one thing I want us to consider, and my point 2, is that none of these folks, none of their goals were to do this. How do we get to the lowest points in our lives? And when we did, if we haven't got there yet, I hope I have. I hope I ain't got. I hope it's only up from here, right? But what happened when we were at one of the lowest points in our lives, right? How did we want someone to respond to us? We'd be lying if we say you've never done anything that you desired grace instead of criticism for. So again, something else to consider as we're walking through this, because while we believe that we are very much separated from celebrities and things that happened at the Oscars, it still very much is present in how we treat people every day. It is a projection. So this goes into number three, and then I'm done. I told y'all this was going to be short and I'm done. So I was toying with this last part, right? But I'm going to go ahead and say it. I just don't know if society at large likes free Black women. Women who choose to not walk the path society has deemed as right in order to attain success. What I mean is society has created this path that says you must follow these steps, these rules, you must show up like this in order to be successful. This path may include being respectable by society standards, being loyal to your man, being good, whatever that means, not messing up, being quiet when you are harmed, being a version of femininity, not pushing back on societal standards. And now these are just the few that I am aware of. And the thing about it, some people actually succeed on this path. And so what happens? They advocate for it. They say this path is right for all women. This path is right for all Black women. And if you deviate from it, it is wrong and you'll never succeed. And I'm putting succeed into quotes because you have to define success, because I believe there are two types of success. And I think you can have them both at the same time, but I think we just have to be mindful of which ones we are going after. I say it all the time: play society's games, win society's prizes. And so the two places of success I'm thinking about are soul success, right? What makes your soul happy? What makes your soul free? Is your soul healed? Are you content? Are you at peace? Basically, you can have the bag, but if you ain't got peace, baby, you ain't got nothing. And so that's soul success. And then you have society success, which I think is the money, is the car, is the husband, is the family, are the kids, like all these other things, which again, that ain't bad, but I'm just saying, let's put it in perspective. So by these societal standards, by the societal path, if you follow this path, you'll get that. You'll get the money, the nice car, the marriage, the kids, yada, yada, yada. But if you don't, you'll never get these things, right? If you deviate from the rules, like loyalty, then you won't get these things. I'm bringing it on around. Some of y'all may be like, Cameo, where you going with this? I think many of us are conflicted because Jada deviated from the path of societal righteousness. She was not faithful or loyal to her man. Neither was Will loyal to her, but we ain't about to talk about that. So Jada wasn't faithful to her man. And I think that's the thing that's uncomfortable to a lot of us, because we have never experienced that type of loyalty, that type of love, all while following this path of righteousness, right? This societal path of righteousness. But Jada, she stepped outside of it, but she still got this loyal man. And I say this because I don't understand literally the venom and the disdain for Jada. Like, I was taken aback by some of the comments, understanding that this is another human being, one that I don't know at all, but in fact a human, right, that has a family, and that, like, I don't get it. And so this is what I came to. I think at the heart of a lot of our issues with Jada is that we are projecting. You know, some of y'all be like, nah, Cam, that's a reach. Let me give you an example. When I have not liked something about a person, 99.9% of the time, it was because whatever I saw in them, I needed. I didn't recognize that I needed it, but I needed it. There was a woman I used to work with, and she was so insistent on what she wanted, right? Without any regard to anybody else on the team, on our work team. It was always about what she wanted, and people bending and appeasing and appealing to what she wanted. Everything from she wanted to go to this restaurant, but nobody wanted to go there, so she decided not to eat, all right? Or she would decide to go to the restaurant and then meet everybody else later. Something that I thought was completely ridiculous. But it would just irritate my soul. And when I say I needed it, the truth was, it irritated me because I needed to be more assertive about what I wanted. I was the kind of easy go person, like, oh, everybody wants to go here, cool. Even though I wanted to go somewhere else, right? This is what everybody else wants to do, cool, let's do that. And so that's what I mean. And I think what Jada represents for a lot of us is a freedom that we desire and the love that we desire, that regardless of what I do, right? My man gonna stand by me. I think that's a part of it. And I think for some guys, have some unhealed trauma as well, right? That they don't know how to stand by women. Like, Jada, right? So that's it. That's all I got, y'all. That's really all I got. I'm gonna stop it here. That's all I got to say. We will resume normal programming next week. I had a show in the hopper. I just thought it was really tone deaf, but we'll talk about it next week. Feel free to leave your comments. Feel free to share. I hope this added value. And as always, thank you for listening to the Good Girl Podcast.